Developers and security researchers, they wear different hats. Rare are people who wear them both, aren't they? So there is no surprise that when both worlds collide, there are misunderstandings. What I would like to show you today is how developers in open source projects see vulnerability disclosure. Which answers can you get when you report a vulnerability? And what is more important, what are the reasons for those answers? But first, a disclaimer. There will be stories. There will be role-playings. And if you think I'm talking about a situation you have been involved with, you are wrong. I've compressed the stories, I changed them, because I don't like pointing fingers to actual situations. But first, I would like to learn a little bit about everyone here. Raise your hand if you have ever contributed to an open source project. Okay? Okay, keep your hand up if it wasn't a security-related project. Okay, so we had around 40% people have contributed, around 20% of people have contributed to a project that is not a security-related one. Now, second question. Raise your hand if you have submitted a potential vulnerability to an open source project. Allow around 20 persons in the room, some of them raising both hands. It means that they have probably submitted quite a many. Thank you. And now the final question. How many of you have had your vulnerability confirmed by an open source project? Okay, there are less people than in the previous question. Now we are going to discover, maybe, why in this talk. And now, about me, because you have told me about yourself, now about me. I'm a security researcher by education. But I've been involved in open source projects for like the last 20 years, been contributing to different things between the Linux kernel and desktop environments and everything in between. Currently, I'm helping the Eclipse Foundation to improve different subjects. One of them is the way Eclipse Foundation projects communicate with security researchers. It means I have seen things. But to make things more complicated, not all examples in this talk come from Eclipse Foundation. I'm covering my tracks. OK, you are submitting a vulnerability to a project, and an example, quite a complete one, of 5 possible answers that you should expect to get. The first one being, thanks, it's going to be fixed in some random release number. Easy one. Easy. Then the second one, this is not a security issue. In the third, the project is saying, oh, maybe, but have you tested? Fourth one, if you care, submit a fix. And the fifth bonus one, we do not issue CVEs. Now, let's explore each of them one after the other. So, if you get an answer, this is going to be fixed in a release XY, that's a celebration reason. But what has happened in the project when they got your message? Oh, We got a vulnerability report today. Josh, could you have a look at this one? Because there is a reproducer and it looks quite nasty. 15 minutes later. Okay, yeah. It even works, that reproducer. That's cool. And if it looks to me that the fix is a one-liner. So let's write to the researcher that we are going to fix it in the next version. Let's have a look what happened here. That kind of an answer means that the project has received a well-written report. It was clearly said what is the issue, when it happens, in which version, how to reproduce, and it was clear and easy to understand. In practice, it usually also means that it's a really obvious bug, like the application is just crashing. So there's no discussion if it's an issue to fix, how to set the priority, just fixing it. Okay, the second scenario, a little bit more complicated. This is not a security issue. So, what happened in that project? We got a security report. Okay, I've been in that project for 6 months. It has never happened before. We are going to do something. Okay, but the user has to reconfigure the application. And we clearly say in the documentation that they should never do that. Okay. And I will have a look in the code. Well, nobody has ever asked a question about this configuration option. So it has been there for 10 years. It means it's not a security issue, right? And typing sign, this is not a security issue. Send. When such an answer happens, I would tell you first in which situation it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen if you have a zero-click or a kind of remote execution without user interaction. In this case, you won't get that kind of an answer. In all other cases, it could happen. A typical reason is that the development team is not well trained. You may have junior developers, people have just entered the project, they do not know it very well, they've never had security training, and also the project that has no habit of receiving any security reports, or the last time it happened, it was 3 project teams before. It could also be a situation when the project, the issue you are reporting is in some local tool that was expected to be internal use only, that should never really be released, but it is because. Other minor situations when it happens, when the report is completely unclear and people just didn't understand at all what's going on. Okay. And now we have a project team that is wondering. Why are they wondering? 15 reports today. That's strange. Karen, doesn't it look like outputs of that Static analyzer you have run a month ago and that turned only false positives? It looks so, right? So I will have a look at the first 5. Half an hour later. OK, the first 5 are in test cases. What have we received this time? And now I will have a look, OK, at that mailing address, the name. OK, they are students at some random university, probably doing security classes. OK, let's ask them to figure out if they're really reporting security issues. I was a little bit exaggerating, but that kind of situation happens. And similar answers are sent when the report is about a possible theoretical maybe happening. A further, not triaged before, or is a very vague, generic, unclear, and especially missing reproducibility procedure. If it's maybe in some version it could happen, well, it could introduce the project team in a thinking that maybe, well, you have seen something in the code, but you have never tried to find out if it could be really exploited. OK. If you care, submit a fix. Do you have an idea when we could have that? Oh, no, not in this code. No. That was last touched 3 years ago. And we haven't heard from the maintainer for 6 years. And they do not want to remove that code. If it's up to me, we just get rid of that because there are no users. So, if you can submit a fix. A code that is not used for various reasons and not an obvious bug, it has a chance to receive such an answer. Especially if the project at the same time has no recent experience of security issues, or it has never received a security issue. There are some. And now, the last bonus one. The image probably suggests a little bit when it happens. But let's play the story. Oh, a bug. Let's fix the bug. But they are asking for CV, and no, we are not releasing CVs. Go somewhere else. We do not issue CVs answer you get if you report an issue to the Linux kernel. That's the policy, period. It also happens in projects where we have pretty overworked maintainers who are receiving too many bugs, and they just prefer to fix them, and they are not doing anything else. If you want a CV, go get it yourself. We have covered a number of situations in open source. And now, what should you know to help you understand why such situations happen? There's a lot to talk about open source. I can be talking about licensing and different things, but what a security researcher should know, I can summarize in 3 points. First, open source project. And an open source project, you have projects of 1 people, you have projects of 1,000 people. They come in all sizes and shapes. But what is common is that developers often lack security education. Myself, when I was doing my university degree, imagine how many security classes there were in the typical development track. Around 0. Has it changed over the recent times? I'm not the best person to ask, because when I'm involved in development training, this is me giving security classes, so cannot tell you if it has gotten better. But the current developers are often missing information about vulnerabilities, about reporting, about new trends. And then the big problem of open source is the maintenance being an unsolved problem. When open source projects get funding, it often goes to new functionalities. It's pretty complex to have funding to fund maintenance work, to fund bug fixing, or security fixes. And what happens at the end is that even in big, well-known projects, maintainers do bug fixing and security fixes on their own personal time. So then imagine what happens if they get 15 reports, false positives from a fuzzer. They just get angry. And we can understand why. Now, I've been helping in Eclipse Foundation using the knowledge we have about open source project, specific situations happening in Eclipse, and we have worked on improving the situation between security researchers and development teams. And here's what we have come with. First, we migrated our security vulnerability reporting from the old Bugzilla instance that we had to GitLab and GitHub to make it easier for people to use. And then we are promoting the use of security MD. That could be hard to understand, but Eclipse Foundation is known for the ID, but we have more than 400 projects. In many cases, we had situations that security researchers reported things through public issues, through public email, through ERC, different things were happening. Because there was that link missing that this project is an Eclipse project, so they can use the common reporting method. Since we added security MD to a big number of repositories, the situation has improved. So I'm recommending that to other projects to make sure researchers find easily a way how to contact that project. We have also started training for developers. We have an annual conference called EclipseCon, and we had a workshop for 3 hours. Of course, we couldn't cover everything, but at least we covered a wide range of subjects during that training. We are working also on tooling for protecting repositories. With 400 projects, each of them having X repositories, that makes an enormous number of repositories on which we want to apply the same security settings. there is a problem of scale, so we are working on tooling to make it easy to have not forgotten branch protection in some repo somewhere. And then the security team is providing help for developers, translation service when they receive something that they do not understand from security people. And the typical help is when filling for CVE. And my personal occupation, quite frequently, is assigning CVSS score, because this is apparently causing a lot of problems. So I'm doing it quite frequently. We have gone from the situations that happen to the situation in open source projects to what we could improve from the project perspective. Now, what I suggest you to consider from the security side. Clear communication is key. Clear communication in vulnerability reports is even more a key. Do not forget to include what is the issue, why is it important, especially attack scenarios. Sometimes when the report is missing attack scenarios, I'm writing them for the project to make them understand the scenario that could be bad for them. And of course, how to reproduce. So the same things as for any good bug report. I'm noticing that security people, also at this conference, have a clear tendency to use dialect. If you start talking to developers about the red team, that's going to be Clear English, easy to understand. Then, if you are developing a security tool, avoid sending issues from that tool before you actually verify that it's detecting what it should be. As I said before, too many reports a project receives will have not only impact on that security researcher and that moment, but it will also have impact on the next researcher sending something to the same project. If you have received 15 false positives, then someone sends something else, what are you going to think? Oh, yet another false positive, right? More and more projects have a way to report security vulnerabilities. So spend 5 minutes to find the right way to contact that project. And then, last but not least, if you are a teacher of a security class and you ask your students to work on open source projects, it's your responsibility to verify what they are sending. I hope I do not have to give examples when it went badly, when it wasn't verified. So, we have went through the situations, possible solutions, and I hope this talk had that result of creating a bridge between security researchers and developers so that we can make the security of software and hardware that is around us a little bit better, no matter which hat do we have. Thank you. And we'll have a time for questions. There are microphones on both sides, so just please come and ask your questions.
Thank you very much for the talk, Marta. We're in exactly the same position in my company, to such an extent that we found the reports coming out of our DevSecOps tools are passively being ignored. So they're being told there's potential vulnerability and they're going, I don't understand what they're talking about. We've ended up actually translating our security standards into tests and then comparing the tests to the reports coming out of the scanning tools so that the tests are in the language the developers understand and the solution teams understand, and we can map them then to the scanning tools reporting the issues so that everybody's got the same language. And I think it's a really crucial point to make. So thank you very much. It wasn't a question, just
Thank you. I can understand that there are similar translation issues like that. And I think more developers getting security trainings and more security people getting developers training, that could help because then they can talk together. Do we have more questions? Three, two, one. If we don't, thank you, and there will be time for coffee. I will be there to answer any other questions that you may have. Thank you.